a big dog.
Oh my God, I love big dogs.
Guys, very fun, special Feel Good Friday coming at you this week. We're doing something a little bit different.
What are we doing?
Well, usually it's just the three of us and Donut hanging out here. But this week we are actually joined by a special guest host.
We are?
Yeah, the host of the new podcast, Stuff the British Stole, Marc Fennell. Ladies and gentlemen, put your fucking hands together for the man himself.
Yeah.
Hello.
I wish I could be there to give Donut a hug, but it's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're stoked to have you, dude. So, look, we don't usually do this, but this is really fun for us to have somebody sit in on the hijinks and the silliness that comes out of this podcast every Friday. Marc, why don't you, before we get into the content this week, give our listeners a little heads up about Stuff the British Stole, what it's all about, how this came to be, and why isn't Aussie doing a podcast about the shit that the British have done over eons?
Well, I mean, if you want to look at the biggest things the British did steal, Canada and Australia are pretty much the biggest things they stole. It kind of started as a joke with a friend of mine, and we were like, do you know what? You ever wander around museums and think, where did this stuff come from? And she just looked at me blankly and went, yeah, because it was stolen. And I was like, interesting. And so a couple of years ago, I found myself in London, and I went over for an award that I knew I was going to lose. So I'm like, I'm going to make this trip worthwhile. I'm going to fly 14 hours. So I brought my microphone with me, and I started wandering around museums. And I arranged an interview with a few historians, and they're like, this one particular historian, she looked at me and went, yeah, everything here was stolen. And she started pointing out things like, that came from Nigeria, and they took it through a massacre, and that came from China, and they took that through another massacre. And so I started working on the series where you would take an object that sits in a British museum and you'd go back and tell the story of how it got there. And in doing so, you kind of get to tell the story of the world left in the wake of the British Empire, which, I mean, I always say, if you can understand what I'm saying and what you're saying, if you can understand English, you have in some way been touched by the British Empire.
Right.
And so it kind of becomes this small doorway into a very big world. And it's amazing. It's sort of blown up. This season we're doing with ABC in Australia and CBC in Canada. And we set up this email address where people could kind of send in objects that they'd seen in museums and go, hey, where did this come from? And there was literally hundreds of emails. So that's what we've made the new season out of. And it's wild. History is, when you go into museums, they've got these tiny little plaques that tell you this very polite version of history. And history is very much not polite a lot of the times. Yeah. And so that's what we embarked upon doing. And so far, people don't hate it, which is my bar for success.
Well, hey, it sounds like a historian nerd's wet dream, and I don't even give a fuck about history, but this sounds like something that's right up my alley.
Neither do I. I should say, neither do I. I have no functioning qualifications to do this at all. But somehow the stories are so wild. You've got stories of the first episode this season is a literal heist that took place in the 1970s that kind of takes you back into history. And
Very
it's
cool.
all these stories are actually bonkers.
I think that is so cool because I think that's what something that makes podcasting so incredible. That podcasting has become this medium through which you can circumnavigate all the typical channels that have been set up to allow people to express their interest or their knowledge on something. Instead of you having to get a history degree and then go pitch this to BBC or some fucking thing that they go, oh, well, you need all these, these qualifications and blah, 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 blah. You can create a podcast, circumnavigate that whole thing. And if your interest is genuine and your knowledge is good and the storytelling is there, then you can build an audience and people will listen to you and you can create something from nothing. And podcasting is awesome for that.
We somehow have built an audience on this podcast, originally through talking to people about what it is like to live with illness. And there's been so many beautiful stories that have come out of this. But then we started doing these Feel Good Friday episodes, and there's an audience that just want to tune in to the whack shit that happens around the world when it comes to health and health sciences. And so we're going to get into some of that with Marc right now. But before we do, because Marc, your podcast has nothing to do with illness, and because I'm just gonna say it's safe to assume you're a pretty healthy guy, and you're not
I could lose
dying.
some pounds, but I'm all right.
Sure. Okay. Sure. So considering that there's not really anything tying these two worlds together, I decided to add one clip this week that has nothing to do with anything, but kind of tying it into what you do, Marc, because I take it the work that you've done in your podcast, even though maybe it hasn't taken you personally around the world, the work you're doing is kind of placing you all these different places around the world. So do you, I have a question for you. Do you speak Cantonese?
No, my mum grew up in Singapore, so she can swear in a variety of dialects, but Cantonese is not one of them.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect answer. So this clip was sent to me by a friend of mine when we were out drinking the other night, and I thought you two guys would find this fucking hilarious. This is my name in Cantonese and what it translates to. Okay,
Jeremy, your name.
My name. Well, all names that's like a series of names that start with Jer.
Okay.
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 Your name begins with J-E-R, G-E-R. Jer sounds like Jer, which means dick in Cantonese. Jared, Jer what? Dick nut. Jerry, Jer like, dick comes. Jeremy, Jer my, dick rice. Gerald,
Rice.
Jerlo, dick road. Gerard, Jerwa, dick says. Jeremiah, Jeremiah, dick says let's buy.
All those in favor of calling him Dick Road for the rest of the episode. Say
Dick
aye.
Rice.
Yeah,
Dick
Thank
Rice is my new nickname. I would gladly take on Dick Rice, and very telling as well.
Dude, so the prefix to your name just means dick.
I know.
Which is really
It makes me want to go to China so bad now.
and really gives you a lot of like sympathy for all the Richards out there.
Yes,
Yeah,
it does.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we can just it's funny because now we know that we have just been calling you Dick for as long as we've known you.
That's it.
Dude,
Yeah,
what
Dick
if,
Rice.
What if this
All that
was
time they've been calling you Dick behind your back was actually just accurate.
Now,
That's right.
and now here's the fucking trippy part. My mom's maiden name is Rice.
no?
My mom sort of accidentally named me Dick Rice.
Now,
Dick Rice.
what if this was
How
the
much
genesis?
therapy is it going to take to work through that?
I know, right?
Yeah,
What if
yeah.
this becomes what if this right now in history, tying history?
Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah. Making ties.
Yeah.
We're making
Longest-
ties.
world's longest bow being pulled.
Yeah, we're making ties. We're making ties. What if this becomes the genesis for like 150 years from now? Everybody whose name is Jeremy or Gerald or anything, that their shorthand is Dick.
And you want to
be.
tie it to the health
be.
thing too. Their mental health suffers because of it.
Yeah,
right. Just like all the Richards out there.
So moving right along to actual content that we typically follow. This video made me chuckle. It's one of those videos, you know, like that, like they come along every once in a while. A video of someone who's really, really high after a surgery. In
Oh,
particular, like wisdom teeth removal or whatever.
That's my favorite lane to explore on TikTok or YouTube.
It's so good. So have you guys ever been in that situation where you've been so high
Yes.
after a surgery that you've said some silly shit?
Oh yeah.
Not that I
Yes.
can remember.
Well, you wouldn't remember it, obviously, but like you were there. Did somebody tell you what you said?
Yeah, I specifically, the memory that jumps out is wisdom teeth out. I was like fully put under with whatever gas
Yeah.
that they gave me
Yeah.
beforehand. And then afterwards, I'm going home and my mom calls John, our friend John,
Yeah.
and is telling him that I'm not really sure why, but Taylor is like really concerned about you and that you need to come and be with him because he's concerned for your safety and that you need to be there so that he doesn't get hurt. And so John came
Okay,
over and,
all right.
and that was like that was me just gushing over needing John.
I had an experience where when I got my wisdom teeth out, there was also a guy who was incarcerated who was there to get dental work as well. So he was being chauffeured around by a correctional officer.
Like, this is actually happening in
Yeah.
reality.
So me and a prisoner were both getting work done the same day, and we were both in the recovery room at the same time with the correctional officer standing on guard by the guy.
This is a Curb episode.
And I was calling out the correctional officer, telling him that he was a rental cop.
Oh,
And my
wow.
dad was like, Dick Rice,
Yeah.
you need to cool it.
Especially since your sister went on to be a correctional officer.
Yeah, I know.
You know what's really
I
funny?
remember-
In the Curb version of that, you would get your bill and he would get his bill, and at some like level of insurance would cover his work, and you wouldn't have
Yeah,
coverage, and you'd be like,
Yeah.
"What? Him? What?"
I'm not paying for him.
Mark, have you ever been so high that you've said some whack shit?
My appendix nearly burst when I was like 23, 24, and I had to be
me
rushed
too.
to hospital. And they were just like, and because the thing with hospitals were like, if you don't say I'm having trouble breathing, they don't rush you in, which is a lesson I learned. And by the time they got me in, they're like, oh shit, you need to get into surgery now. But when I woke up, because I'd spent so long sitting in this waiting room watching reruns of CSI, apparently when I woke up, all I did was recount, that guy did it. And then went back to sleep again.
That's
So
great.
somehow I'd imbibed like 14 episodes of CSI, like the early like Gil Grissom years, and I've just been like, it was that guy, and then I went straight back out again.
So this clip is a gentleman who had something removed, I believe wisdom teeth, I'm guessing based off what he looks like. And it seems that he was experiencing some sort of amnesia where he didn't remember anything in his life, but the only thing he does seem to remember is Batman.
Is that a nice chair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it better than the one you have at home?
Oh my god.
Down.
Yeah, you have a chair.
I
at home.
haven't served myself.
Yeah.
No way.
Your mom and dad bought it for you.
I have a mom. Oh my god.
You know who I am?
Yeah.
Who am I? I'm your dad.
Oh my god.
I have a dad.
I have a dad.
Listen.
You know you have two sisters too.
Oh my god. Where are they?
Well, they're at work,
Oh
They gotta
my
work.
god. I can't believe I have sisters.
and you have a dog. Is that cool? He's a big dog.
Oh my god, I love big dogs.
His name-
What's his name?
His name is Bane.
Oh my god, just like Batman. God.
Oh God, that would be a lot.
Oh my god, my life is perfect.
My life is perfect.
That was
I
so
love that.
brilliant.
Isn't
Like,
that?
that is the most heartwarming thing I've seen in months.
Isn't
Yeah.
that
I love
the
that.
most beautiful thing? Yeah, like what a way
Yes.
to just realize how beautiful your life is.
Yeah, like everybody's going around being like, oh man, like I don't have enough money, I don't have enough of this, I don't have enough of that, like blah 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 blah, whatever your issues are, and then they're just like, you've got sisters
You've got a dad.
and a dad and a mom and a dog, and he's just
Yeah.
like,
And it's big. It's a big dog.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
all. That's it. That's all I need. Nothing else. Don't need anything else. Life is perfect.
Just imagine being that grateful for things. Like I cannot imagine being that grateful for anything right now.
It's the best. It honestly is like that. That was my favorite part of the video was just the simplicity of of realizing how much gratitude you can have for the things that you take for granted every single fucking day.
Yeah, and it wasn't even the specific things, because like you could tell that whatever his dad told him he was gonna have like that reaction to, like
yeah.
and
Yeah.
you
You've got a
PS5?
penis.
Yeah.
I've got a penis.
Yeah,
You got a,
Oh my
you got a
god.
chair.
yeah.
And he'd be like, but it's small. And he'd be like, but it doesn't matter because I got
That's how
one.
you use it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, speaking of penises, this is a great segue. Thank you, Taylor.
You're welcome.
We're gonna go into a dick story, but before we do, Mark, you are from the beautiful, wonderful country of Australia. Unfortunately, I haven't had an opportunity to visit, but it's one of those places that's like high on my list that I would love to go explore and check out. And one of the things that simultaneously piques my interest yet also terrifies me is the amount of creatures that exist on your continent
Totally.
that can fucking end you in just a matter of seconds.
So many.
Do you, Mark, like where in Australia do you live?
So I live in Sydney, and the funny thing is the sheer number of animals that can kill you in the country, sure, but the sheer number of animals that kill you, that can climb through your window, that you can kill you, is the thing you want to be afraid of.
Whoa!
A couple of years ago, I read about Chris. So we're coming into our summer at the end of the year, and that's where the spiders get really big. And a couple of years ago, there was a gigantic spider that climbed on our window, and my kids, who are like 5 and 7 years old, are so sort of spiders. And they saw it, went, "Oh, Dad, this one's a big one. You should take a photo of it." And I took a photo of it, and I was like, "It is a big one." And I put it on Twitter. Before I knew it, it was like there were articles in Ireland and France about Australian TV presenter finds world largest spider. Because apparently it was real. You grow up, you forget just how like scary so many of the animals here are until you put them on the internet, and everyone else is like, "Oh yeah, you live in a hellscape." I'm like, "Yeah, but the beach is nice." So yes, I'm familiar with our scary animals.
Well, this is a story that made me just wince to the utmost degree.
I don't like how you got into this story by talking about penises and then talked about terrifying animals and are somehow going to bring that all together right now.
Buckle up.
Fuck me.
I think I know what this is.
So this came from Motherboard.
It's a detached penis that's on a rampage.
Man experiences scrotal necrosis after cobra bites his balls.
Fuck.
This is
in
not,
Australia?
No, this is doctors in the Netherlands claim they've seen the first ever case of scrotal necrosis from a highly venomous snouted cobra after a snake bit a man's balls from inside a toilet. Okay, so
wow,
that
Sorry,
right there.
Can I just pause? Scrotal necrosis is the best metal band name.
Yeah,
It actually is, yeah.
Yes.
If I had any musical skill, and if I looked that good in black, I would make that band right now.
Scrotal necrosis is actually an amazing band name. Venomous snouted cobra is also great. Cobra from the toilet is also terrifyingly good. So I mean, just like that. If you don't already have a fear of sitting on the toilet, which some people do.
Oh yeah, I was like, wait, hold on, wait, where? Like, do you mean like a hygienic fear?
No, people have a fear. Some people have fears of sitting on the toilet for this exact reason.
Oh, I do. Like in summer when it gets warm, because if you go to like a public toilet, because they're kind of out in parks, they get quite warm. So we know that spiders and snakes do particularly snakes do kind of coil in there, which is like a thing that I know. But then I look at it and go, I'm just checking. All right, I will sit on you now.
You know what's crazy is I've never thought of that in my entire life, like of looking for something in the bathroom. And even if I traveled abroad, like if I was in Australia, I still wouldn't think of that because I live in a place where there aren't animals like that, so I just don't think about that naturally. And now
you're always gonna think about it.
Now I'm always gonna. Now, guys, this fucked my life up.
Before you are
so welcome.
Before you continue with this story, and this opportunity to say this doesn't come up again, I have to say this. I know that I've told you guys this story. I've probably recounted on the podcast before, but we've got our new friend Marc here with us, and I definitely haven't said this on the podcast for a while, but I have an experience with my penis and with a bathroom and with an animal of my own. And it happened in Nicaragua a few years ago. It would have been 2017. I'm in the bathroom and I'm taking a piss and getting graphic here. My foreskin's pulled back and I finish peeing and I roll my foreskin back over the head of my dick and I feel a pinch. And I go, wow. And I kind of like, and I just kind of take the head in between my fingers and kind of give it another little, just a little squeeze. And I go, ow, fuck, what the, and then another, ow, fuck, what the fuck is that?
Pressing it?
Well, because I'm going, is it a pressure point? Like, is it
the first time? I'll do it 3 more times.
Well, it's just,
to make sure it really hurts.
It's palpating.
Also,
I'm palpating it.
Like a pressure point on your penis.
Well, I know, right?
Like,
I know. I'm just testing the waters.
Did you get something caught in there?
I pull my foreskin back down, and there is a fire ant underneath my foreskin that obviously, while I was peeing, had somehow crawled up the backside where I didn't see it, and then I rolled it back over, and then it was in there. It was in between the skin and the head, and it bit me 3 times on the head of my dick, and it burned.
Because you keep pressing it. I mean, the first time it's on him. The second 2 times it's on you.
I mean, I
That's
never. I thought that
Thank
it was
you,
like a sore or something. Like I didn't think that it would be an animal that's biting my dick, and it hurt so badly, and it swelled up, and it was stinging for probably like 24 hours. It stung real bad.
Total plot twist. Maybe that was your little buddy who had like crawled into your penis hole at like in the middle of the night, and he was just huddled there and he was feeling so good, and you unrolled him because he was already in there. He got cold, and then you tucked him back in,
So
and
you
he
think
was like,
it was an
"Sweet."
inside job.
And then you squished him, and he was like, "What the fuck? I thought we were friends." And then he bit your dick.
You know, it's
I also like that next time, and I feel like the line like, "Is that a banana in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?" I feel like with the additional swelling from the fire ant, you could be like,
I also was
"Salt
really
of fire ant."
I was really picturing it like a Pixar movie, but anyway,
well,
that's just where my brain naturally
to
goes, I
me,
guess.
the saddest part of that story is the thought of the last place I ever took a breath would be the inside of someone's foreskin. Like that poor ant. What an awful way to die.
I'm not sure if he died. I can't remember.
I mean,
now.
You tucked him
Are
back
you
in
just
after.
lying to yourself? Of course he died.
yeah.
I mean, ants
didn't kill it?
ants are pretty resilient. Well, I didn't specifically kill it. I think I unrolled it and he just kind of fell away.
Well, moving back to this story here, the 47-year-old patient was on vacation in South Africa at a wildlife reserve when the cobra surprised him from below. He waited 3 hours for a helicopter to fly him to the nearest trauma center. According to the report, during which he felt a burning pain spread from his genitals up into his abdomen and chest. When he arrived at the hospital, he had, quote, swollen genitals and a deep purple discoloration indicating scrotal necrosis. The researchers wrote, doctors administered 8 doses of snake venom antiserum, as well as medications to control his fever, dialysis for injury to his kidneys, and debridement of his sac and shaft that involved exercising a lot of his genital tissue.
Get me a definition for debridement.
Yes.
Because
Debridement
that doesn't sound good.
I feel like it's like a slit to alleviate some pressure or something like that.
It sounds like a separation of some sort.
It's debridement is the medical removal of dead, damaged, or infected tissue to improve the healing potential of the remaining healthy tissue. So really, they just cut away a bunch of scrotum.
Fuck.
After 9 days, he was transported to a hospital in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I was wondering how it was the Dutch research team that ended up working on it.
Yeah. So he got back there.
The Dutch in South Africa are very...
The doctors there documented his case as the first to ever describe what happens when a snouted cobra sinks its venom into a man's genitals. The photos of this poor man's mangled nuts published in the report are not safe for life. In the early stages of recovery, his sac looks like a badly sewn Tim Burton puppet.
Oh,
with a long, thick stitch running right up the middle.
Oh wow, that is such a visceral.
Do you have?
Well, we'll get to this. 21 days after the bite, a plastic surgeon patched up his shaft with a skin graft taken from his groin. As gnarly as it looked for the first time, the man's doctors did actually a pretty good job of undoing the damage, and within a year, the patient regained function and sensations. A nice bonus to the ultimate outcome of not dying on vacation from a snake bite to the balls.
Wow.
Around the world, snakes striking from inside toilets is more common than you'd think. Last year, a 7-foot python bit a woman on the ass in Thailand. In April, a 10-footer got a man in Malaysia.
What?
And in July, a 5-foot python grabbed a man by the cheeks in Austria.
Face cheeks or ass cheeks?
I'm going to guess ass cheeks.
Why is there a python in Austria? Is it like a pet?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
That could have been a typo. It could have been Australia, but...
I just want to take a moment here, Mark, to just quickly survey Mark on how he feels about his decision to join us here today.
No, this is everything. I'd hoped for and more. No, I'm loving every second.
But I'm so curious. Like I was imagining, so my fear that sort of came up in me in talking about this was like, oh fuck, now when I travel to other countries, I'm gonna really have to check the public bathrooms.
I'll definitely
to
look in
make
the
sure
toilet
that there's
now.
no scary
Oh, yeah.
animals in there. But like a 7-foot, a 10-foot, a 5-foot snake, like
But they must be in it. Like
they're not fucking
they're not
small.
they're not curled in it. I feel like they're in the like.
But also,
pipe.
you got to think about. You also have to think too, like not just that, but like if you're in an outhouse, right? Like an outhouse is just a giant hole, right? So there's lots of room for something to be slithering around down there.
So you got a poopy bite on your butt too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably not clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The doctors documented the case of the necrotized scrotum, wrote in the report, quote, "Our take-home message, always flush the toilet before sitting down in countries notorious for their snake population."
That sounds like a
That's
waste of
actually really
water.
good advice.
It is.
Do you reckon when the guy woke up from his graft surgery, he was as grateful as the other guy? It's like, I have a penis. I have a shaft.
Yeah,
He would be, right? You want to hope so.
Because it could have been. I mean,
100%.
he could like you can, your child making abilities are compromised, but I mean you
For
can
sure.
you can still do work. If he got his dick bit, different story.
Now, this story reminded me.
If he got his jar bit,
His Dick Rice was bit. This story reminded me of a conversation that I had with a friend of mine who works as a healthcare professional. He works in the emergency department sometimes, and sometimes in the operating room. And he has a very strong stomach as a human. And he came to me basically explaining how he experienced probably one of the gnarliest things he ever has in his entire life.
I remember this.
And almost vomited and was straight up like, this is probably the worst thing anyone could ever witness. And it was called Fournier gangrene.
This is truly
Now, Fournier's
made of horror. This is made of horror.
Fournier gangrene is gangrene or necrosis of the junk, of the scrotum of the dick.
Oh fuck.
The
And
whole deal, or can it isolate with bit?
it could be the scrotum, it could be the shaft, it could be the whole thing.
But like in the stomach is like it was.
Well,
was
it spreads. So
Right.
that's the thing, is that it spreads.
Right.
And so my friend who told me about this was like, whatever you do, don't Google
Google it.
image search this.
Yeah.
Which we immediately.
Which I
did.
immediately did. And
Everybody's doing right now.
yeah, well, you know what? You don't even have to do it, because I'm going to show you guys an image of Fournier's gangrene.
Well, we can't show that. We can't put that on YouTube.
We might have to blur this out on YouTube.
Well, I don't think there's much to look at that's clear.
There is though, in this photo. So buckle up, Mark. This is what you signed up for.
Like
This
Brad
is essentially what happened to this man's penis.
Wait,
This is necrosis of the junk.
I don't know if I want to look at it.
How bad is that?
Oh, fuck.
You're such a fucker.
Oh, it's actually just an image of rotten bananas for our listeners.
Okay, well, everybody go and Google it, because if you really.
No, don't.
I actually do have it here. So
You motherfucker. You really.
Wow.
oh fuck.
See, that's a. If you look up, what is it? Fournier's gangrene.
Yeah.
This is tame.
This is tame.
On the spectrum
Yeah.
of images that will come up when you search that. This is tame.
Honestly, guys, it is November right now, or Movember, and this is why it's important to talk about, to be comfortable talking about your health. Because
Right.
if you don't like,
Well,
if
the
you
so the
don't
guy that
start
went
talking
in,
about your fucking
the guy that went in, that
shit.
my friend, the reason that guy was there is that he left this. He
Yeah.
was having this pain in his dick, didn't do anything about it, and it got so bad that I think he died. The guy died.
He did.
Really?
Oh,
Well,
wow.
because
Yeah.
by the time, so I
It
remember.
was too late.
So we were
spread too
we
far.
were together when our friend told us the story, and the bit that I remember was that he had said that the retelling of this was that he had this pain for a very long time, like upwards of a month or 2 months, that he was like feeling significant pain, challenging to have bowel movements, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera, and that his wife said that for at least a month,
Oh yeah.
there was a rotten, putrid smell coming from him.
Yeah. Whoa.
And so
That's
visually,
how bad this got.
and so visually for this
Whoa.
person, you couldn't see. It was all happening internally.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then they went in and they opened him up, and they basically, his entire like abdominal cavity was completely destroyed.
Why does that happen? Like,
Well-
how can that happen?
That's a good question, and I don't know enough. I mean, a snake biting your dick,
Yeah, true.
but
That's
I
fair.
mean, in this guy's case, he probably I don't know.
I mean, we have a lot of people who listen to the show who would probably know.
letters at sickboypodcast.com. How do you get Fournier's gangrene? How does it develop? Like, how would that happen to someone?
Yeah.
And how?
It is an object lesson in like just not ignoring stuff, right? Because I don't know
Well,
how
that's
it is for you guys, but like dudes, generally speaking, leave things way too long
Totally.
before they
And,
realize something's
yeah.
gone wrong.
And this is
And I'm as
Taylor.
guilty as anybody.
And this
Like,
is a conversation that we had on the podcast during our live show, our Movember live show that we did a couple of days ago, which is that, you know, the stereotype of men, this like stoicism, the sort of like pushing down feelings, having a hard time communicating about things that are tough and challenging. Those are the things, those are the parts of masculinity that have led us to a point where men just have a hard time talking about their health and talking about their whether it's mental health, their physical health, and in that it prevents them from actually seeking help. And
Yeah.
so, you know, it's this vicious cycle that obviously in this man's case led to his fucking death.
The stereotype of it's more masculine to like man up and like don't talk about it and stuff is actually I think is like a bullshit mask to like say, oh, it makes you uncomfortable to go to the doctor and talk about something because it makes you feel weak or something like that. Well, it's actually takes a lot more strength to go and open up about that thing than to shove it down and ignore it in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
No
Talk
doubt.
about your shit.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving right along here, this next story. This.
What the fuck, dude?
This is some. I know. We've got wild shit this week.
Did you get any palate cleansers in there for me?
This is kind of a palate cleanser. But it's a fascinating story. But before we get into it, I have a question for you, Mark. Mark, have you? You know, you're a father. You're in your. I'm going to guess you're in your, mid to late 30s. Have you put much thought into end of life or thought into death and what your plans will be for when that day comes, if that day, you know, presents itself with any of preparation on your end?
probably not as much as I should have. Like I think we have a will. I think we've got a will that kind of says what happens to the kids if either of us go or both of us go, my wife and I. But no, I probably haven't. I think I've put more effort into the trying to push it back. Does that
Right.
count?
Yeah. Well, so how about this?
It's common.
To be a little bit more specific about it, have you put any thought into what you would like to see happen with your body when you pass away?
I know intellectually the most sort of environmental thing is supposedly cremation, but I'm still banking on shooting my remains into the sun. And I don't care how much money you have to spend to do it. Please do it.
Okay. All right. I love
I
it.
think Elon Musk might be able to. with
Taylor,
that.
I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast at length, but for the sake of this, Taylor, what would you ideally like to see happen with your body when you're dead?
I like the idea of burial from not from like the religious, from like the religious angle that burial has, or like the ritual of burial, but more so from like and not like casket and everything. But when we talked to Caitlin, what was Caitlin's last name?
Dowdy.
Caitlin Dowdy about all the different rituals and ways that you can do this.
Like
the green burial, like
Yeah,
you're kind of
green
put in
burial.
this shroud and you're put in the ground. I really like the idea of like, just being, just having my particles and my matter just get fully recycled back into the circle of life.
Brian, what about you?
Viking funeral pyre and ashes scooped and put into a glass dildo.
Okay.
So hold on. Hold on. Whoa,
Sure.
Are those two separate options?
No, same thing. Yeah, there would be like
So
some
the pyre to burn,
Yeah.
and then take the ashes and put them into a glass.
There would be like a machine or something.
you're gonna have
on the floating.
So you're gonna have a floating thing that's
with GPS
burning.
Yeah, there would be,
And then it just returns to base,
Yeah.
and you scoop it up and you put it in the dildo. I think it makes total sense.
just like
Yeah.
the SpaceX. Yeah.
lots of drones and shit have that.
and I'm pretty sure Elon Musk can help you as much as he can help mine.
Do you know what a Raspberry Pi is?
I am familiar. Yes.
Yeah.
Computer. Yeah.
So yeah,
It's funny because Raspberry Pi sounds very naughty,
it sounds,
but it's so not.
It's not at all.
So
But it's great.
there have been a number of times where I thought about the idea of donating my body to science, and I think a lot of people have thought about this idea of putting yourself forward so that if your body is needed for science, to donate it so that and I think when you think about that idea, what comes to mind is like your body is given to a university for
Hungover med school students.
exactly like for anatomy classes or
They're just
or-
drawing on you and shit.
or to some sort of hospital or something of that kind of ilk.
I also want to mention that's what's going to happen with my body before the Viking
Right.
funeral pyre.
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, in this case, this is very interesting. Also, a Vice article: family finds dead grandfather being dissected at public event.
Whoa.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
I've seen this story. This is horrendous.
This is wild, and there is a subcategory to this story that I'm saving for next week that is going to blow our minds wide fucking open. You'll hear a little bit about it in this article, but we'll cover the basis of that next week.
My favorite thing on this podcast is when we start to go down a lane.
Oh, man,
and then
this
we
is a fucking
explore it
lane.
over
Yeah.
a series of episodes.
So, a family who thought their grandfather's body would be donated to science learned that he ended up dissected in front of a paying public audience
Wow.
in the middle of a hotel event room across the country. The body of David Saunders, no relation to me, 97-year-old World War II vet, ended up in the ballroom of a Portland, Oregon Marriott hotel where people paid up to $500
Hold
for
on.
tickets
I
to
changed my
see a
answer.
live autopsy in person.
I want to go in a Marriott hotel. That's what I want.
Only in the States, right?
I think I've stayed at that hotel.
Hold on, never
It's
mind.
not a
Sorry.
nice one.
I changed it again. 4 Point Sheraton.
There's I think there's like a Porter's or a QT that's like very fancy.
The family discovered what happened to their grandfather's body only after an undercover journalist from Seattle news outlet King 5 attended the October event and spotted the man's name on a tag hanging from the body.
No fucking way.
The autopsy performed by a retired college anatomy professor included several hours of dissection, slicing into the chest cavity and removing organs and the brain. Wow. So this is crazy. The story of how this ended up to be is quite wild. Mike Clark, a funeral director in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, handled Saunders' body after his death. So Clark is the funeral director. He's the one in kind of charge of Saunders' body. Clark told the King 5 that he passed the body to a private company called MedEd Labs, which claimed to solicit corpses for medical research purposes. That company then sold Saunders' body to Jeremy Siliberto, the founder of deathscience.org.
Dude, is that crazy that your body can get sold?
Dude, this is what we're going to cover next week. The whole realm of what happens to your body when you donate it to science is completely unregulated.
Dude, I mean, I've been trying to raise the alarm on big corpse for years now, and the deep state.
You need to
nature-
have children because that was an A-class dad joke.
Guys,
well,
I think
just
that,
wait.
I think that we should start a business where we we're the body middlemen.
It sounds like I mean, there's money in it. It's
Great B2B.
apparently. We'll keep following this thread. So MedEd gives the body to this guy Jeremy Siliberto.
Sell it to him.
And he's the guy he's the founder of deathscience.org. And deathscience.org partnered with the Oddities and Curiosities Expo to hold the cadaver autopsy event. Siliberto said he bought bodies for this event for more than $10,000. Okay. So a representative for the Oddities and Curiosities Expo told Motherboard in an email that the expo's only role in the event was to provide a ticketing platform for death science, and that the cadaver class has never been a part of the traveling expo. Quote, Oddities and Curiosities Expo was aware that the demonstration was happening at a different location with a different company, and we're of the understanding that it was intended to be educational in nature, the representative said. Now, Siliberto advertised these events on his TikTok account, and here is the advertisement that he put out about this event where Saunders' body ended up.
If you want to see a real-life autopsy and cadaver dissection for education, keep watching. We're super excited to be teaming up with the Oddities and Curiosities Expo to bring everyone this opportunity to join us in a cadaver lab. It'll be hosted by us and instructed by a forensic pathologist and surgeon. We'll be having class in Portland, Oregon, Sunday, October 17th, and in Seattle, Washington, Sunday, October 31st. Morning class is forensic autopsy and afternoon class is anatomical dissection. Tickets at cadaverclass.com. Join us physically inside the classroom or virtually anywhere in the world for this educational event. Attendees should be 18 years or older. It's a great opportunity for students, professionals, and really anyone interested in pursuing a career path in forensics, mortuary, or the medical fields. And you can learn more at cadaverclass.com.
Wow.
My favorite part about that is the bit that he takes a sharp intake of breath immediately before he says, for education. Like,
Yeah, right?
the tiniest like little bit of parenthesis, like, oh, it's for education.
Yeah. So there's definitely some like fishiness here. And this keeps going, right? So I know this is a long article, but like it's too fascinating not to cover. So everybody involved here, all the people involved claim that they were duped by the next person in line of custody to take possession of Saunders' body. So Clark told King 5 he was under the impression that MedEd Labs would use the corpse for medical research, but MedEd's Labs went on to sell the body to deathscience.org. They thought so. The Clark he thought that
Clark's the original.
Clark's
guy.
the original person. He was the funeral director, right?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What did the family think had happened to the body initially? Like, did they just were they under the impression that it was in the ground or somewhere? Did they have any idea that it was out of the ground being passed around?
Yes. So the family agreed to give the body up for donation to medical science, and so they were thinking that this guy Clark has the body, and the process is that he will give it to someone like MedEd Labs, and MedEd Labs will then find a place for this to exist for the advancement of like medical students.
Which, yeah, like when you think about that, you often think of university settings.
You
Yeah,
would think
and
that
then-
would
but
have to
then-
be like a federally regulated,
But
or
it's-
like,
and that's
or
the
like,
fucking crazy
there would
thing,
have
it's
to
not.
be like a federal governing body that like handles that
Now-
in some sort.
Now,
some sort of
MedEd
way.
Labs, they claimed that Siliberto was, quote, beyond dishonest about the nature of the event and called it a medical class. Siliberto claimed that the family was informed all along. Quote, I can guarantee that man knew his body would be used for medical research purposes. Siliberto said. Siliberto pitched all along that it was an educational performance and perhaps it was enlightening for the people who watched it. So in a statement to Motherboard, Siliberto claimed that MedEd Labs was responsible for and provided the cadaver as well as the anatomist, the equipment, serology report, the venue booking, and all handling of the body before, during, and after the event.
Yeah, because that like usually when I'm looking through academic calendars or trying to check into like a course that I want to take, I usually go to TikTok first.
That's what I'm like. That's what I'm
class.
saying, dude. Like that's where it gets really fucking sketchy.
Listen, maybe I'm reaching here a little bit, but it looks like almost like this is like a necrophiliacs conference or something like that.
Right,
This
'cause
guy
it's
gives
for
me
the-
some weird vibes.
Because it's for the public, so they're like selling tickets to an event where you're just watching
To the
it
public,
happen?
and in the description of the class, they said, "quote Cadaver access before, after, and during breaks." A description for the autopsy class reads. The, quote, dissection class, meanwhile, which followed 1 hour after the conclusion of the autopsy class, said, quote, "We will be observing an anatomical dissection of a full human cadaver. Death sciences medical professionals will be guiding us through a formal anatomical dissection. The dissection will offer a unique look at what is under our skin, through our bodies, and how it all works together."
That's weird too. That first bit about like, oh, you'll be able to see it before, during, and after.
Yeah.
and
like,
and for a $20 surcharge, we will give you 10 minutes of alone time.
Oh, dude.
It's the veneer of education, isn't it? Like that's the part that's really
That's the
like
part
because
that's
you can
shady.
see it becomes really naked when you watch the TikTok video that he's like he knows he needs to put just enough sort of educational language around it that he can get it over the line, but it doesn't certainly feel like that's the underlying goal.
Yeah. Man,
But here's
my question for you, Jared, is like,
Yeah.
and you guys, like, if we were sitting here and we like something came up on one of our social media channels where somebody was like, "Hey, yo, there's gonna be this conference down at the Halifax Convention Center. You can come down and check out a real body being autopsied." Would you guys have any interest at all? in going and checking that
100%.
out?
I would be there.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
1,000%. I mean, I'm not gonna say like this is shady as fuck and so bad. However, I'm in.
Well,
Like-
because
like,
you're
I
all-
would have been there.
Because you're also not thinking,
Well,
you
no,
know,
yeah.
6 degrees down the line,
No.
some family was lied to
Yeah,
about where
not at
their
all.
where their grandfather's body
No,
is.
I'm
going.
not thinking about
definitely-
where the body came from. Because I'm just assuming this is all
above
legit,
board. Yeah,
above
yeah,
board,
sure.
You definitely run into some interesting characters, though.
so.
Oh yeah.
There was a recent article on the Funeral Directors News website called Connecting Directors, and it discussed the so-called chain of custody issues where bodies are misplaced, misidentified, or otherwise straight up lost. They said, quote, "You have to know without any hint of a doubt from the moment the remains are placed into your care to the time they reach final disposition or are returned to the family that you can positively, unequivocally provide positive, proper identification of that individual." So clearly in the world of funeral home directors, this is a fucking issue. Now, here's where it gets really, here's where things get really
Here's where things turn weird.
well, here's where the discussion gets really interesting because, okay, so the notion of giving your body over to science, right? Like that's when I die, I want to donate my body to science. That's the thing we've heard people say time and time again. That statement, donate my body to science, is a very broad statement. What does that mean? In this case here, although this wasn't an event that was specifically for university medical students or future funeral home directors or yada yada, what have you, it was just a public event. It still does fall in line with that statement. I want my body to be donated to science because it is teaching the science of anatomy to a bunch of people.
Listen, there could have been a 20-year-old kid there who was so inspired by that event that he went on to become, or she or they went on to become
a serial killer.
Yeah. I think
This is the origin story of Dexter that we always wanted to see.
that's right.
or an incredible surgeon.
But like, am
and-
I right though? Like there's a point. There's a point to be made there that although this isn't okay and this is shady, it still kind of falls in.
Well, I guess it beckons for more clear language about what science is when you're donating it. That
So-
you need to be more clear when you say you're going to do that. That maybe there's some language around I would like my body to go to a medical school for studying purposes or something like that.
Because the fact that this is unregulated, means that statement is so broad that it can lead to something like this. Donations to universities are most likely to be used for teaching and research, and donors are much needed to develop new medicine tools that help the living. But private for-profit companies that buy and sell cadavers have been caught using them to test explosives and leaving them to thaw out in the sun.
Wow, that's horrific.
So this is what I want to cover next week, which is that there have been bodies that have been donated to science that end up in the hands of the military, and the military use those cadavers to test what happens to a human body when you blow it the fuck up.
Dude, there's so many movie scripts like available in this.
I have a way better idea, and I think that maybe this is something we should look at doing for next year. Is imagine, and this is for science, of course, because we would be studying how fear works in the human body. So we'd do a haunted house, and we'd buy a fuckload of those bodies, and we'd put them all in the haunted house so that it would smell
String them up so they're floating and like
Yeah.
kind of moving.
and we could animate them with like animatronics and stuff like that.
Health
You know, weekend at
violation.
Bernie's.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, and we'd just scare the shit out of people. But we'd have like some medical student there, some fucking researcher doing some studies on fear.
Dude,
right?
the Weekend of Birdies thing is...
Sorry.
No,
I was
no,
gonna say
go ahead.
The thing that stands out to me is that how far we haven't come, because this is the origin of science was a lot of grave robbing. Like, you know, if you go back into the history of, you know, any kind of anatomical science, a lot of it was like, and this is like right into sort of the 1900s, they were going into graveyards or sick and poor people basically died, and they pulled the bodies and they started dissecting them. And some of those remains still exist, and some of them, you know, universities across America have them, and they don't know what to do with them because they're like, we know we got this through terrible means. And actually, one of the episodes of Stuff the British Stole is about a body which was basically kept for medical purposes. And then there was this really long campaign in South Africa to get her, it's a woman, her name was Sarah, returned. And so I think the thing that alarms me most about this is how far we haven't come, because this has been going on for centuries. And the fact that it can still happen in this sort of broadly unregulated sort of extra legal space is amazing to me.
Yeah,
and
that's
something that we just have
amazing.
never like I would never think about this.
It's amazing that we managed to go full circle here.
I love it.
I know that this had a tie back to your podcast is so incredible.
It's just perfect. Yeah. Let's wrap things up. But before we do, we'll hit this week's segment of What the Health? Because I'm getting real tired of doing it. My back's all fucked up. I couldn't give it everything I had.
You don't really have to do it anymore.
Do you guys know what
We appreciate it though.
Superfitation is?
Nope.
No, especially not when you say it like that, because I can't be 100%
I could've-
convinced
I
that
could've pronounced it
pronounce it right.
Superfitation. I think that's it. Do you know what superfitation is?
I feel like it is a thing that involves. It's hard because it doesn't even have like a, you know, normally like there's like a syllable in there that reminds you of like a body part, and you can kind of guess from that, but it doesn't really.
No.
Is it having like super fast feet?
No, that's great. No. Superfitation is the simultaneous occurrence of more than one stage of developing offspring in the same animal, which
Sorry, say that again.
can happen to humans.
What did you say?
So basically, it is possible, although extremely rare, only 10 documented cases in medical journals across the world, where a woman is pregnant twice
At the same time.
at the same time.
Like two uteruses?
But isn't
So the phenomenon is called superfitation, and in order for it to happen, a second egg needs to be fertilized and implant itself in the uterus of someone who's already pregnant. This is
So
different.
is
than-
this separate to being twins? Is it? This is
it's-
like one's already started, and we got another one in the oven and ready to go.
That's right. Yeah, you got one just
Ooh.
following real quick behind.
But in the same uterus.
Yeah.
so you might have one that's like 6 months and then another one that's like, oh fuck, this one's 3 months.
Yeah, so this is different than twins because the eggs are released at different times.
Okay.
And it could happen with sperm from the same person or different people. Superfitation is super rare for a few reasons. Number one, the pregnant person needs to have uterine dilathize, so 2 uteri. The pregnant person would need to ovulate after being pregnant and release the second egg, yet hormones released in early pregnancy prevent ovulation from occurring.
We didn't talk about superfitation, or is that
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
But we talked to somebody. This was years ago now. We talked to somebody who has 2 uteri.
Yeah. So this could happen to her.
Right.
The other thing that it needs to be happening is the second egg would need to be fertilized by sperm, yet pregnancy hormone cause a cervix to form a mucus plug that blocks the passage of sperm.
Mucus plug is my favorite term.
That's a great
That's
band
the
name,
other
too.
metal band playing. The other one. We're actually now coming up with a festival.
Yeah, that's right. And then finally, the fertilized egg would then need to implant in an already pregnant womb unless there were 2 uteri. This also requires the release of certain hormones that wouldn't be released if the person was already pregnant. Experts believe that superfitation has the possibility to occur when the initial spike in pregnancy hormones is delayed. Hormones are spiked from in vitro fertilization, or a pregnant person has 2 uteri. A doctor would notice a case of superfitation if an ultrasound showed 2 fetuses growing at different rates in a single womb. However, this can also happen with twins for a variety of reasons. The most important complication of superfitation is that since both babies are growing at different rates, they will be ready for birth at different times.
Yes.
For survival, often both babies are born at the same time through C-section, timed to ensure the least complications for all.
Wow.
How fucking wild is that?
Wow, because you'd imagine that if they didn't, which makes sense that they do it by C-section, that they're both born at the same time. Because can you imagine?
It wouldn't be possible. I feel like it wouldn't be possible.
Right, to give birth to one and leave one in.
As soon as you started talking about this thing, I was like, well, that makes giving birth
problem
to one of those babies a problem.
Yeah.
And
so what did they go? They got to time it so that it's like, because at a certain point you get like space issues, right? You can't have them both fit in there because they're not in the same kind of structure. So you got to time it until there's X amount of months where it's safe to remove one, put it in intensive care, and close enough to the other that it's so like you sort of, you'd have to find a sweet spot in the timing, right? Where there's like enough space, enough development, but I'm saying this like it's really simple. I'm sure it's like 1,000 times more complicated than that.
I think that is it though. Yeah. It's like, you kind of got to wait until it's like, okay, this baby is doing good and will be stable when we take it out. This baby, although born much earlier than it's supposed to be, the chances viable. Are that it's viable.
How rare is it?
Only 10 cases documented.
Period.
Ever.
Wow.
Whoa. Yeah.
Now, I want to bring this up but I want to run it by you in case you were going to add it to a future episode. But the article I sent you yesterday about the mix-up.
Yes, that will be a future episode.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then I won't mention it.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah. Love all the teasing for future Feel Good Friday episodes. Marc, dude, what a pleasure to have you on the show. It's so fun to do this with another voice, another head. Why don't one more time just give our listeners a little plug for Stuff the British Stole, where they can find it, and where people can find you.
Great. Thank you for having me. It was lovely. I really enjoyed this. It was actually really did live up to expectation. Awesome. You can find Stuff the British Stole wherever you get your podcasts, or of course you can find it on CBC's website and their app as well. But if you're interested in all the insane shit that led to us being here in this world, that's the show to listen to. And you can find me on socials. Yeah. I'm just at Marc Fennell. It's Marc spelt with a C because I don't know, that my family was fancy. But yeah,
I'm gonna listen to that ASAP.
Yeah, you know what Marc spelt with a C is in Cantonese?
Do you know the story is originally I was going to be Max, and then I came out and Mum went, "Oh, he's going to be a wanker. Let's give him Marc with the French spelling." And she was right.
Marc, thanks, dude. This has been really fun, and to everybody else, thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. We love doing this. We have so much fun. If you're watching on YouTube, knock the bell icon, hit subscribe, leave your thoughts on below in the comments. Anything that you heard this week, something that just tingled you to bits. We want to know about it. And to all of our listeners on Spotify, hit the follow button. Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and review. We love hearing from you in those ways.
And let's maybe our call to action this week for letters or DMs. You can send this to letters@sickboypodcast.com, or if you're a Zoomer, you can fly on over to our DMs and slippity slide right in there. And let us know what the weirdest translation of your name is in, whether it's Cantonese or any other language that says that your name is super fucking weird. Let us know.
Thanks to everybody who makes this show happen. Thanks to Jeff Lonis, our manager. Thanks to Rich O'Coin for the theme music. And to everybody else, we love you. Patron people, you guys are great.
Sweet potatoes.
That is it for this week.
I'm Brian.
I'm Taylor.
I'm Jeremy, and
I'm Mark.
this
with
is
a C.
And this is Sick Boy.